discipline that builds legends the Spartan way. In the valleys and harsh hills of ancient Greece, there was a city where comfort was treated as poison. While Athens filled its streets with marble, debate, and luxury, Sparta filled its land with warriors. They did not chase wealth. They did not chase art. They chased discipline. The Spartans believed that luxury weakened men, but hardship, endured daily, created something greater. Not comfort, not happiness, something rarer, something feared, something remembered. Legends. At the age of 7, boys were taken from their homes. They entered the Agoge, a training ground that belonged not to parents but to the state. Here they were stripped of softness, given little food so they learned to hunt and steal, given one cloak for the year so they felt the cold in winter and the heat in summer, beaten not for failure, but for complaint. It was a world built to test one truth. If you remove comfort, what is left? When the alarm rings, the weak man bargains with himself. The disciplined man moves. This was Sparta. There were no bargains, no excuses. The alarm was life itself, and you either rose to it or you broke. Their staple meal was melazomos, black broth made of pig's blood and vinegar. Other Greeks laughed at it, even spat it out when they tasted it. But the Spartans ate it because it stripped pleasure away. It reminded them that food was fuel, not luxury. Strength mattered more than taste. Comfort was not the goal. Survival was. Spartans learned early that discipline was not about the extraordinary. It was about the ordinary, done without complaint. A blade left in its sheath dulls. Struck against stone, it sharpens. A man is no different. Discipline is not glory in the moment of battle. It is the grind, repeated every day, that prepares you for it. A tree does not fall with one strike. Take swing after swing, day after day. Greatness is the same. From the outside, this life looked cruel. From within, it forged iron. And when that iron was tested, the world would see what it meant. The Spartan phalanx was not a line of soldiers. It was a wall of discipline. Each man's shield covered the soldier beside him. Break formation and you exposed your brother. One weak link breaks the chain. In Sparta, that meant death. But hear this riddle. You can be skilled in your craft, strong in your body, unbreakable in your will, and still collapse because of a single weak link within yourself. What is your weakness? The addiction you hide? The distraction you feed? The indulgence you excuse? That is your broken link. And until you cut it out, your empire is already crumbling. The Spartans didn't train just to fight the Persians. They trained to fight themselves, to master hunger, pain, cold, fear. Discipline is not about defeating the enemy in front of you. It is about defeating the enemy within you. Stand in front of the mirror. If the man looking back knows he's cheated himself, no one else needs to call him weak. The Spartans had no mirrors. Their reflection was the shield. Drop it in battle and your weakness was revealed. In 480 BC, the world learned what Spartan discipline could do. King Xerxes of Persia marched into Greece with hundreds of thousands. City after city fell before him. But at the narrow pass of Thermopylae, 300 Spartans stood in his way. They were not alone. A few thousand allies stood with them, but it was the Spartans who set the tone. For 3 days they held the line. Wave after wave of Persians crashed against their shields and spears, but the phalanx did not break. The earth shook, the sky darkened with arrows, but their discipline made them unmovable. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Xerxes had numbers, but his army was a chain of slaves and mercenaries. The Spartans were a chain of iron. One link, one man, one will welded to the next. What breaks a man faster? The spear of his enemy or the comfort of his own bed? Thermopylae was not won in those 3 days. It was won in the decades of training before it. It was won in the hunger of the Agoge, in the cold nights without shoes, in the daily grind of discipline. One step walked every day reaches further than a sprint once a year. The Spartans walked their steps every day, long before they stood at Thermopylae. That is why they became legend. But legends are not built without cost. On the final day, betrayed by a traitor who revealed a hidden path, the Spartans were surrounded. Leonidas, their king, dismissed the allies and stood with his 300. They fought until their spears broke, until their swords shattered, until their hands were bare, and still they fought. When Leonidas was told to surrender his weapons, he answered with 2 words, "Molin Labe, come and take them. What is heavier, the shield you carry, or the regret of dropping it?" The Spartans died to a man, but their discipline lived. Xerxes may have won the ground, but he lost something greater, the illusion of invincibility. The Spartan stand lit a fire in Greece, a fire that would one day burn Persia itself. The lesson is timeless. You do not need numbers to be strong. You need discipline. Xerxes had an army. Leonidas had men who could not be broken. Look at your own life. Comfort tempts you. Distraction surrounds you. Every hour lost scrolling is a battle handed to the enemy without a fight. Which is more dangerous? An enemy at the gate or weakness in your heart? A fortress is not broken from without. It collapses when the walls inside are neglected. Every choice lays a brick. Every excuse knocks one down. Weakness builds the cracks your enemies will use. Sparta eventually declined. Their rigid system could not adapt. Their population fell, their power waned. But their discipline outlived them. Even their enemies spoke of it with respect. And centuries later, when men speak of strength, courage, and sacrifice, they speak of Sparta. Legends do not need wealth. They do not need comfort. They do not need recognition. Legends need discipline. A blade left in its sheath dulls. Struck against stone, it sharpens. A man is no different. A tree struck once does not fall. Struck again and again, it breaks. One weak link collapses the chain. The man who disciplines himself cannot be enslaved. He may be beaten, he may be killed, but he cannot be owned. Because the man who masters himself has nothing left to fear. Discipline is not punishment. It is freedom. Freedom from craving. Freedom from distraction. Freedom from weakness. The Spartans knew this truth, and they proved it not with words, but with their lives. So the story of the Spartans is not about numbers. It is not about victory or defeat. It is about the law that forged them, the law that still holds true today, the law of discipline, the law that builds legends.